Hello. I've had to film this video several times because I keep forgetting points that I want to make and things and all the things I keep forgetting. So the last couple of weeks have led to this video, and if you've not seen by the description, yes, I'm talking about quite a touchy subject. Again, like I did the last couple of videos. Hooray for actually doing quite controversial stuff here. Ah, man. Now, the last couple of weeks, as I said, have led up to this video. And what I mean by that, in particular, is Emma Watson's speech to the UN about her HeforShe campaign, and also Sam Pepper and his sexual harassment stuff that he's been accused of, involved with, and doing the thing, and I can't control it. Anyway, Emma Watson did a speech to the UN about her HeforShe campaign, which is about getting men on side to support feminism. What was meant by that was the fact that feminism in itself is seen as quite a female-sided, concept. Now, one of the things that is really hard to kind of wrap your head around is the fact that feminism actually means equality for men and women, but the fem bit is the bit that people get a bit stuck on. Now, in my experience of, how I've been brought up and who I've grown up with and who I've kind of had any kind of interaction with, I would see myself as being equal to any man that I have interacted with. What I mean by that is the fact that I was brought up to know that I can do anything that a guy can do. For example, I always wanted to play video games and card games with any of the guys who were any of the boys at school or anything like that. I attempted so many times to play football and failed miserably, but I was part of that. I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to be equal to the guys that I was at school with. I often found that I was in a lot more male company at school and at college than I was in female company. I felt particularly equal to the guys that I grew up with. Now, I grew up in an area where if you were a guy, if you were a man, you were a builder, a labourer, you went to the Navy or the Army or any of that kind of thing, any of that kind of occupation. And performing arts was not really a big thing. You didn't do performing arts unless you were privileged enough to do so. You didn't do performing arts unless you had the means to do so. So from the word go, when I was getting into performing arts with my best friend, Smithy, he won't mind me mentioning his name, I felt particularly equal to him all the way through, because as far as I was concerned, he was doing the same job as me. Technically, he was performing as much as I was, and we felt equal the entire time. I've also been brought up by my parents to feel completely equal to any man who I'm in the workplace with or I'm working with, sort of thing. And if anything, I'm extremely strong-minded and extremely independent, so I feel quite equal to any man that I come into contact with. Now, I would admit that I have not named myself as a feminist before because I never felt the need to. Because as far as I was concerned, I was equal to the guys that I interacted with, or I felt like I should interact with. I think feminism is quite a hard subject to kind of come to terms with, because the guys are not really seen to be represented in the feminism spectrum, which is where the HeforShe campaign came from. A couple of the things that were raised about the HeforShe campaign is that, guys struggle with mental health as much as women do, except for we're probably more open about it. We don't feel demoralised because we talk about our feelings quite a lot. I've had experience that is not often represented for guys in terms of equality for them, is equality of them being gay and stuff like that. And some guys probably feel emasculated if they, are particularly metrosexual or they are well groomed or anything like that. It shouldn't have to be like that. I'm actually In my books, I'm actually quite impressed when a guy is well groomed. I would not necessarily be more worried if they took more pride in their appearance than I did, but if they are kind of on an equilibrium of, you know, makes themselves look presentable when they step out the door, then I'm happy with that. You know, swings and roundabouts and all that. Like I mentioned, some of the things that guys get stigmatised for is particularly being metrosexual or being gay or you know, mental health is also one of the things that crops up quite a lot. All three of these things are things that I've experienced on the other side of things, being a girl, and you know, men in my life have experienced all three of these things where they've been a little bit like they can't talk about these things. Friends, family have all experienced these things. You know, it is a real struggle for guys to be able to come to terms with those sorts of things, because mental health in itself has a real stigma, no matter who you are. Also, it tends to make men feel extremely emasculated if they feel like they have to talk about their feelings, and that goes for anyone. That goes for any guy. You know, it's hard enough talking about your feelings when you don't want to talk to someone anyway, and then when you're a guy as well who has to have this kind of persona of being very male and very sort of protector sort of thing, that is a real difficult thing to have to deal with. There are obviously a lot of things that aren't right, that are still pissing me off, that are still not right, that feminism kind of is aiming to help eradicate or help to kind of get rid of. And that's where the sandpaper thing comes in. Almost within the same week as the HeforShe campaign came out, it was found out, or it was seen, that Sandpaper did a video where he was grabbing the asses of girls and essentially sexually harassing them. That is the kind of thing that makes it really difficult for people to support guys in terms of feminism and actually stand up for them. And that's what's made it really difficult for me to do this video, is that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I want to stick up for the guys as much as girls. But that video really pissed me off, because I was like, seriously? Emma Watson has just defended your gender, and then you go and pull a stunt like that, and it just really got on my nose. It really kind of irritated me. And the fact that he had the nerve to say that it was a social experiment. If the social experiment was to see how quickly you can become a douchebag in 0 to 60 seconds, Sandpaper, there we go, there's your answer. No. I suppose the point of this video is that I'm probably becoming a little bit more comfortable with the idea of calling myself a feminist to some degree. The only thing, one of the things I kind of wanted to point out that make me angry and really annoys me about some approaches to feminism is the fact that some of the things that really kind of annoys me about feminism in itself, and it is one of the things that makes it really difficult for people to want to actually open up and call themselves a feminist, is that it is sometimes seen to be extremely aggressive. Now, I would call myself a very subtle feminist. I know the difference between right and wrong. I know where the line is drawn in terms of, if a guy talks to me in a certain way that I'm not comfortable with, I will tell them. The guy will pipe the fuck down if I tell them, don't talk to me like that. So to some degree, I'm very subtle in that I will occasionally just flip and go, that's not right. Guys tend to have far more respect for you if you're not constantly angry about that sort of thing all the time. The thing is that with anything, if you are constantly driving home a message all the time on repeat in a very aggressive manner, it's really difficult to actually get that message across. It's like when I had a teacher who used to tell all the class off all the time and used to shout and scream at us all the time, and we just stopped listening in the end because it made no difference what that teacher said. You know, we just stopped listening. Any kind of argument, you have to have both perspectives. So my main points is just the fact that I understand that things aren't particularly right on the girls' side either, but I understand where the Emma Watson HeforShe campaign is coming from, and I I literally, when I saw Emma Watson's video come up, I was like, praise the Lord, someone has actually taken a side of feminism that I can actually drive home with. It was a really flippant comment that someone made sort of a couple of years ago, which was when I was in Zombie Society, which was something along the lines of, oh, I bet you get loads of guys doing that. And I was literally there just like, that's not what it's for. I'm not literally there to sexualise the guys and want to get off with them. I play a silly game with them, play a silly game of nerf tag, which, you know, burns off a bit of steam. The impression of it wasn't the fact that there are 200 odd men on the society, therefore I really want to get off with every single one of them. It was the simple fact that I was like, alright, it's like a real life video game. I'm quite happy with that. There's loads of people on the society. They seem like a good laugh. Happy days. And I got a lot of stick for being on Zombie Society. I got a lot of stick for wanting to play video games. I got a lot of stick for wanting to do male-dominated stuff. And I was just a bit like, what does it matter? What the hell does it matter? With hair cut short and still wearing a dress, a straight white female. I think that women are particularly aware of how they can sometimes say flippant comments that actually are quite I'm not entirely sure that women are particularly aware that they make these flippant comments now and again, but it has been said to me and I was a bit like taken aback by it. I was a bit like, what? That makes no sense whatsoever. No sense whatsoever. On the flip side, I was also told when I took on being president of ZombSoc for a brief time that I couldn't do it because I was a girl, and I was a bit like, I'm sorry, what? I suppose the best way to sum up from someone who is a subtle feminist and someone who is not particularly comfortable with the idea of calling themselves a feminist just yet, that, you know, we need to remember that if it's going to be something about, we just need to remember that if it is a movement about equality, you can't just take it from one person's perspective, it needs to be from both. There's no yin without yang. I'm far more comfortable with the concept of calling myself a subtle feminist. I think there's a saying of some description, I think there's a saying which is, if you're doing something good, people won't know you're doing anything at all. And that is my approach to feminism. Yeah. An interesting perspective, maybe?